Today, my talk is DevOps for Agile Coaching collaborative model, which basically is back to basics. That is, I know that those words are in German, but basically the message is back to basics. So my talk is about how we can combine, the parts of DevOps formation and Agile formation to try to work together. DevOps people that has experience with DevOps and also people who have experience with Agile working together in the Agile DevOps digital transformation. Basically, that's the idea of this conversation. I'm going to share with you some experiences about it. Okay, my name is Jorge Castro. As I said, I work as an Agile QA DevOps program manager. Data. Here you can have my contact information. So please, if you want to add me to your LinkedIn accounts or something like that, please, that would be awesome. If we can connect and we can be part of the community and we can share experiences and that would be great, right? If we can, get in touch after this session. So thank you for that. As I said, in this paper, we are sharing our experiences from the trenches, for real projects, for working with real clients in real business challenges in different companies. Most of the cases at large enterprises, about how we, as an agilist, in my case, as I said, I work as an agile coach. So that is my point of view in this talk. It can be for agile coaches, scrum masters, agile team facilitators, and so forth. How we can support and accelerate and collaborate with the DevOps culture and practices adoption through a collaborative work inverted Y model. So I'm going to explain you what is that, but basically that is the idea. I noticed that unfortunately in most of my projects actually in the majority of my projects, when I have the challenge to support or collaborate with the business transformation, DevOps adoption, Agile adoption, and so forth. Unfortunately, it seems that the Agile part sometimes doesn't work together with the DevOps transformation as well. So I noticed that, and basically that is the approach that I'm going to share with you, how we can, some efforts to work in the same path of transformation to support the business and delivery value. That's the main idea of this talk. Okay, so let me share with you. Okay, first I would like to start with this quote from our friend Bill Gates. Success today requires agility and drive to constantly rethink and react and reinvent, right? I think that is quite important. So as part of the challenge to try to, as part of my challenge as an agilist, trying to support the continuous delivery and the adoption of new ways of working, new practices of engineering that DevOps brings, I think it's quite important to try to adapt, right? To try to think your strategies, your approach in a different way, and try to adopt new ways of working. So that is why I like this quote from Bill. Basically, okay. So real life. Let's start with the story, with a real life story. So imagine that once upon a time in a common enterprise, imagine that you have Matt, who is the agile coach or scrum master or whoever in your company. Also imagine that you have Hannah, and Hannah is a software architect, and they both have a challenge, which is Matt is working in the agile transformation path, in the company, in the enterprise. So he's in charge of all the Kanban stuff, Scrum, the agile stuff, right? The Lean stuff and so forth. But Hannah is in charge of the part of the technical part or the DevOps adoption, right? As I said, in this story, they are working on that, but they are trying to combine efforts so they can work together. The idea is that they can work together in the same continuous improvement approach for the teams or the teams in the company, right? So that's the main idea of those guys in this story. And they have a problem, of course. And one of the problems that they notice about the transformation in the enterprise that they are working on is this, something like this, right? They have a lot of agile stuff, a lot of mindset, a lot of culture stuff. But unfortunately, in this story, the engineering part, which is basically the DevOps adoption, the extreme programming part, the microservices, and all the stuff that brings DevOps, is less compared to the agile part, the culture part. So this is a common scenario in this story, but it's something that I noticed that happens in different projects that I have a chance to work. So that is what we are trying to change that, right? Because when things like that happen, maybe this video is a kind of real thing that about our products, right? I think that that video is kind of funny, but I think when you have teams that they are not working together in a real transformation about cultural thing and also the engineering practices, maybe you are going to deliver products, but they are not going to be as better as you want, right, for your clients. So that's the idea, you know, that is the situation, the story that I'm going to tell you right now. So, okay, my approach is quite simple. It's basically, okay, we know that this agile movement, this Scrum thing and Kanban thing, basically the origin of this movement, it was about software, right? It was about try to deliver the best quality software that we can as a developers as a engineers. That is why I call this back to basics. So as you know, in the Agile Manifesto, right? I assume that you know about it. We have something like this, right? Our highest priority is to satisfy the customer through early and continuous delivery of valuable software, which is, as you know, continuous delivery is DevOps, right? DevOps enables continuous delivery for valuable software, which is software with quality, on time, you know, and so forth. And also the manifesto, the Agile Manifesto says working software is the primary measure of progress. So that is another point of view, right? Which is quite important. Our main efforts needs to focus on software, right? In working on software. So that is why the message of back to basics. I noticed that in some agile transformation, the teams take care about the agile part, which is the mindset and so forth, which are quite important, of course. But what about the technical part? What about why we have this DevOps transformation path in another path, right? Why we not combine those paths to try to have only one approach together? So that's the message. Okay. So our goal, you know, in this story, Hannah and they focus on this goal, which is basically continuous improvements, continuous delivery. The formula of this is agility, you know, the agile, the lean practices, flow culture, thinking on value, delivery in short cycles and so forth, plus continuous delivery, which is basically all the DevOps practices, right? So the continuous testing, continuous delivery, continuous integration, and so forth, plus all the automation stuff. That is what enables continuous delivery. And the idea is why we collaborate and enjoy, right? I'll have fun. When I say collaborate, is the agile people and also the technical people, right? That was our goal in this story. Sorry. So for this approach, something that I recommend is, and I know that this is difficult in some scenarios, is we need to move from our comfort zone. I know that in some cases, Scrum Masters or Kanban Masters or Lean people, in some cases, or Agile people, when I share this approach with them, they say, okay, but the technical part is not my business. I understand that, because of course we don't have all skills, and that is something normal, right? There are people that are more that they have more skills in the technical part, and there are some people that maybe have more skills in another, maybe soft skills. But that's the idea of this model. In this model, we need to challenge the people, right? We need to think in one approach for transformation, which combines the agile parts, the lean mindset, and so forth, and also the technical part, the DevOps transformation and so forth. So that's the approach. We need to move from our comfort zone to try to be more productive and try to deliver more products to our customers. So that is part of this collaborative model. Okay, sorry. Yeah. Okay, sorry. There is okay. In this slide, basically, so as part of the story, basically, as you can see here, the well-known wall of confusion, you know, in DevOps. The idea is that we have in some part of the team, we have the Agile coaches, the Scrum Master, right? All the Agile people, the Kanban masters, and also the Lean fellows, and so forth. And also in the other part, we have the DevOps fellows, right? The architects, the technical leads, the senior developers, and so forth, the operation people, and so forth. So for me, something that I noticed is that there is a new kind of wall of confusion. It's not about, this wall of confusion is not about between development and operation. In those days, something that I noticed is that this new wall of confusion is between the agile part and the technical DevOps part. So the idea of this framework that I'm going to share with you, this model, is we are going to remove this part, hopefully, hopefully. So a good quote from Gregor Hope is, I like this quote is, the strategy isn't to win the game. That's the goal. Playing to your strengths also isn't. That's a given. Your strategy has to be making conscious choices and trade-off. Yet, I see too many organizations whose strategies are wishes or truisms. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that the main approach is try to create a strategy to create collaboration, to real focus on the customer experience, and do real engineering. You know, so that is why we create this. Sorry, 1 second, please. Oh, sorry. Okay, that is why we create this approach, this collaborative model, which is the DOFAC, DOFAC, the DOFAC, DevOps for Agile Coaching method, which is basically in this method, basically the formula is like that, right? We have continuous delivery equal a kind of, is a function of agile plus DevSecOps. So that is the approach. So what I'm trying to do with this model is try to stop all these cases when you work in an enterprise and the strategy is we have the agile transformation in one path and you have the DevOps SecOps transformation in another path. I am trying to stop that with this method, you know, combine those strategies to have only one. So that's the idea of this method. Okay. Okay, that is what I'm saying. You know, we have these paths with different paths. Agile was working adoption, DevOps SecOps was working adoption. And the idea is try to collaborate, that the fellows involved in those approaches, as I said, the Scrum Master, Agile team members, and so forth, work with the technical guys. That's the approach. So because at the end, as you can see here in this hopefully funny image, at the end you can have this final approach, right? Which is the engineering agility development path. Which basically, when we say engineering agility, is basically that with our culture, with our agile ways of working, with our lean mindset and so forth, we are going to engineering our ways of working to develop software in only one transformation path. So that's the idea of that I'm going to share with you in this model. Okay, this strategy has some big steps. We know that if you like the idea, you need to work in these steps with your teams. So imagine that you, as I said, right? Imagine that you have this DevOps transformation path, and in your company you have the agile transformation path. So those are the steps, that strategy that I recommend you to follow if you want to consolidate only one transformation path, right? The first one is the as is, which is basically the do assessments about what is the reality in terms of the engineering practices, TDD, unit testing, deployment, and all the stuff, all the engineering practices, and also the agile ways of working, the lean practices, and so forth. You need to get information about the real situation of your company. With that information, working together, the agilists with the DevOps guys, DevOps fellows, technical leaders, architects, and so forth, they need to work together in, okay, let's identify what are the main problems with our teams in both aspects, and try to create one consolidated plan to work together with those teams. That's the idea, okay, in the step number one. I call this approach to create a holistic DevSecOps plus Agile assessment, which is an assessment which combines, to try to combine the engineering capabilities and also the Agile ways of working. This is the first approach, the real situation of your teams. The second one is the ways of working models and practice enablement, which basically, the opportunities that you get from the step number one, you need to create, okay, this is my plan, right? If you notice that your team needs to improve the unit testing part, or the deployment stuff, and also the collaboration, or the thinking out of the box, or something like that, you identify that in the step number one. In the step number two, you need to create, okay, this is our plan. We are going to improve those ways of working together with the agile team members, with the coaches, Scrum Master, and so forth, with the technical part. In the next slide, I'm going to share with you an example of that. But basically, that is the approach, right? Have this agile on-hand training based on this inverted Y model, right? As I showed you before. And finally, the step number three in this strategy is basically the continuous value delivery, which is, okay, you need to work on this with your teams. You need to coach them, you need to teach them, you need to be part of the daily basic work, while they are getting mature in the practices and also the mindset, because the idea is that you can get impact in your customer experience, with your speed, with your quality, with your efficiency, with your cost saving, and so forth. So as part of this approach, we also need to identify what are our numbers or the metrics, OKRs, or what are the goals that we want to measure with this approach. As you can see here, the overall strategy is quite simple. 3 steps to work together, but that's the idea, right? To make it simple. That's the approach. Make it simple. Okay. So this is one example of what we got with this model. So I'm going to explain this. Okay, as you know, the security part, in the bottom, the security part is, is in the end-to-end, right? It's in the end-to-end of the development paths of the software is in the end-to-end of any software development cycle, right? The security part, and also the agile practices, because the agile practices are our mindset, our culture. So you can have this in the entire end-to-end, right? But as part of that, we define these 3 moments in these development paths of the teams. We have the structure part, which is a kind of the strategic part. We have the enablers, which are basically all the work that we need to do to enable some kind of practices or improvements in the software delivery lifecycle. And also we have the development itself, which is the coding part, the testing part, and all the activities involved to the construction or the development of software, right, and the delivery. So we define those 3 stages. And also, for example, in the structure part, we have the team organization, we have the outcome-based strategic planning, and the information which is in blue in those blue boxes, are all the activities, all the practices that, for example, in my case, the Agile coaches or Scrum Master can support, can support while the team is getting or is developing these new ways of working. So, for example, right, in the part of outcome-based and strategic planning, we as an Agile coaches or Scrum Master, we can support that approach as part of our holistic approach with OKR knowledge, right? We can help the teams to define OKRs, focus on value, and so forth. And as part of that, as part of this strategy to focus on value, we also can apply some gamification approaches, right? If your strategy is to make stronger the new practices and make your teams enjoy while they are working in the transformation, you can use game design or gamification as well. So yeah, so that is part of the approach, right? All these blue boxes are all the activities, the trainings, the dojos, the katas, and so forth that the agilists can deliver working with the teams and working with the DevOps fellows in the transformation. What are the maps as well, to define the strategy, for example, DevOps for business as well, because in some of my projects, something that was a challenge for the technical teams was to define how DevOps adoption impact the business or the customer experience, right? That was a challenge in my experience, so that is why we as an Agile coaches, we can support the transformation in the technical part with this DevOps for business, which is basically try to take advantage of all the improvement that DevOps delivers to the process in terms of business outcomes that the managers can understand, so they can support the initiatives, for example. We have more than that. In the part of enablers, for example, I think that's something that we can help in the architecture and data, for example, which is basically define the architecture of the applications or the products. We can support, for example, in my experience, we use a lot event storming. So we as an Agile coaches, we can facilitate event storming workshops with the transformation teams to try to define the architecture of application, the data models, and so forth. Also, domain storytelling, to define our business domains in our products, and domain-driven design. Currently, there are different techniques to facilitate domain-driven design workshops with our technical teams and Agile teams working together to define, for example, the architecture or the business domains of different solutions. So, and as well, Agile architecture, right? There are some, well, we as an Agilist can help the team to create a more agile architecture with some kind of using domain-driven design, event storming, using OKR, for example, and different agile lean techniques that can support the transformation as a one effort. For the part of tech and business as well, we can facilitate dojos. We can provide we can work together with the technical people to create some technical agile coaching frameworks, to support the ways of working adoption in the teams. So that is part of the approach. In the development part, which is basically, as I said, the coding part, the testing part, again, right? We as an agilist can work together with the DevOps engineers and so forth in different activities to support transformation with, for example, right, mob programming. In our case, in my experience, I had to work mob programming to work with the developers to teach how a mob programming session needs to be handled. So I teach them about it, and after that, they can have their own mob programming sessions by their own, for example, So pair programming as well, TDD or BDD with example mapping techniques, for example, is another case. in the part of QA validation and testing, agile testing. As you know, agile testing has principles, has culture, has some practices, and we as an agile coaches can support that, can deliver that knowledge to a team and work together with the team, right? With the technical end and also with the agilist end, working together for one approach. Let me give you an example, right? So imagine that in your case, when you do step number 1, you identify that you need to work in the continuous integration part. Imagine that, right? That is the result of the assessment. So as part of the assessment continuous integration, okay, you can work in TDD, unit testing, right? You can prepare your Jenkins to integrate code and put some automated tests, to improve your continuous testing. And also you can have a kind of branch strategy, right? So you can do all the stuff, all the technical parts, right? But what about, for example, the size of the user stories or the size of the requirements? So something that helps a lot continuous integration, in my experience, is, for example, user stories slicing, right? So slicing is something that you need to work together in your approach. And besides all the technical part that I mentioned, you can include slicing techniques. So you can work together with the agile ends to work in these approaches together. So that is an example, right, of what I'm trying to sell with this idea, with this collaborative model. And finally, for example, right, in the part of the deployment stuff, when you need to define your deployment strategy, if you have different environments, for example, you as an agilist can support these activities with visual facilitation, right? You can use visual facilitation to try to see the entire stream of environments that you need to use for your products, for example, and so forth, right? That's the idea. So again, just to sum up, you have all this approach, all this stream, which demands all the, which involves all the parts of the development parts. Sorry, which involves all the sections of development. In these sections, in each section, you can have different activities, trainings, and support that you can get from the agile part, right? As you can see here, a lot of stuff. Actually, there are more, but actually those are examples that what you can do to support the technical part as well if you are an agilist. Okay, as I said, something that is quite important, that is very useful, at least in my experience, is OKRs. I think something that helps you to move your ways of working adoption is using OKRs. So I recommend you to put in practice OKRs. Engineering OKRs as well, which is basically the more technical OKRs, but both the traditional OKRs and also the engineering OKRs need to focus on value, right? On the customer value. That's part of the idea. And also as part of this approach, something that is quite critical is dojos and katas, right? I know that you know that there are unit testing dojos and katas and so forth, but also we can have example mapping katas, we can have agile testing katas, and other stuff, right? The best approach to translate the support, to adapt new engineering practices is through katas and dojos. I recommend you to use that as an approach. So that's the idea. I recommend you to take advantage of all the knowledge from your teams. The agile guys and the technical guys, they need to work together in one approach, because at the end, we have the same goal, right? Which is improve the customer experience and delivery value. So that's the idea, right? So yeah. At the end, in my experience, working together, I think that technical guys learn from me. I learn from the technical guys, and we work together. So that is quite awesome. And to sum up, I strongly recommend, just to finish, to sum up, I recommend you, if you are working with in a transformation, I recommend you to work with your teams, work together in only one approach, try to combine the skills to maximize the effort and the collaboration. That's my recommendation. Sometimes it's just a matter of doing the basics, basically. Please try not complicate things. That's the idea. So some books that I recommend you that help me with this work, with this approach. Hope you can take those, check those books. They are very nice and very useful. Some links, some references. I'm going to share with you this paper after this session. And finally, guys, thank you very much for your time. Please remember that we all have dreams. So help and share more. Remember that sharing is caring. So help and share as much as you can. And thank you very much, Steve, and all the team for your time. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.